Hi, it's Mary Jane Copps, the phone lady, and I continue to dig into the statistics and the comments that came out of our 2025 report on phone and video communication trends. And this month, I'm looking at two sales challenges that were well mentioned and how they can be eliminated. The first one is aptly described in this quote, someone describing their sales team not contacting prospects due to fear of the outcome. I can totally relate to that, which is why I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to take you back to 1989, 1990. It's the second or third year of building my first business, which was North America's first online research directory for journalists. And things were tough, really tough. I was in a place where I was thinking, okay, this has been a mistake and we should get out early. I wasn't paying myself very much. I was working crazy hours. It just didn't seem like it was working. But I thought, let's get advice first. And I contacted Business Development Corp, and a consultant came. And in my memory, he stayed 2 or 3 days. He looked at everything that we did. He looked at paper files. He looked at computer files, such as they were in 1990. And at the end of, I think, his third day, we met in the evening. And he looked at me and he said, "Mary Jane, you're doing a great job." And my reaction was tremendous disappointment because I thought, okay, this was a waste of time. I can't be doing a great job if I'm not paying myself very much and working all these hours. What is he talking about? But the next thing he said changed my world. He said, "Well, Mary Jane, most salespeople, no, not most, the average salesperson sells 1 in 10 people they talk to. You, meaning me, are currently closing 1 in 5. I can still feel my surprise at that moment because I was so naive about selling. At that time, I thought I was supposed to be selling everyone I spoke to, which is what some of your sales team are feeling when they have that fear of the outcome, because they think they have to get yes all the time. And what this consultant was sharing with me was that no is part of the sales process. There will always be no, there will always be maybe, there will always be perhaps later on. Oh my goodness. That freed me up. That allowed me to really dig into what sales is all about. And I became as enthusiastic about a no or a maybe or a later as I was about a yes. I treated every conversation the same from then on because I realized I didn't need a yes from everybody. So think about whether you or members of your sales team are thinking that same way, that they need a yes with every call. Because that's not the truth, right? There are no salespeople that close 100% of the people they talk to. That doesn't happen. Everybody has a ratio. And so no, later, maybe, it's all part of the sales process and it's all okay. You know, a no can become a yes in a year or 6 months. And a not now can be someone who shares their conversation with you with a colleague, and that colleague calls and becomes a client. It's all part of the process. So what you want to do for yourself or your team members is help them make their statistics how they judge their performance. That's their goal. Take the pressure off the outcome of each individual conversation because that's weighing them down. That's expanding on that fear that they have. If their close ratio goes from 1 out of 10 to 1 out of 8, fantastic. Now they can focus on 1 out of 7. I became very obsessed about statistics. And I kept my own. When I grew a sales team, I had them keep theirs. We looked at them all the time. We looked at them weekly. We looked at them monthly. We looked at them annually, all the time, judging how are we doing? Is there something we need to change? Has the market changed? Has language changed? How do we improve our ratios? The next challenge is not asking for the deal. I hear this all the time. All the sales teams I train, this is a challenge that you don't ask. I'm not sure exactly why. I think there's a belief, an incorrect belief, that if you do a great presentation, the prospect will say, yes, let's go ahead with this, which would be amazing, I guess. Doesn't work that way. There's lots of reasons why. What we want to know is that to close a sale, you have to have a process. It isn't a random thing. You're not waiting until a prospect says a magic word. You have a process that you're guiding the prospect through. Your team members have that process that they're guiding the prospect through in order to get to the moment when the sale is going to happen. So, what you want to know, first of all, is that decision fatigue impacts sales numbers. Decision fatigue is the fact that statistically, we are all making about 35,000 decisions a day because of technology. And if that's something you haven't investigated, get in touch with me and I'll send you some more information. I've really dug into that several years ago because I realized if that information was true, it was impacting my success rate. And it was. We are all making so many decisions a day that sometimes when we are considering purchasing something, we're too tired to make a decision. And we need the salesperson to help us. I'll give you a very small example. I needed light bulbs. And I went to a big box store. And I guess I hadn't bought light bulbs in quite some time because I didn't realize that they had this big, long aisle. It was all light bulbs, tremendous amount of light bulbs. So I walked that aisle once. I picked up some stuff, put it back, walked the aisle again, could not figure out what to buy. And I walked out of the store because there wasn't anyone to help me. I was overwhelmed. I could not make a decision. And that happens to people several times a day. So it's happening to your prospects. So helping has to be part of our sales process. And what I've discovered is this phrase allows every salesperson to help with the decision making and to ask for the deal. And the phrase is simply the next best step. So you've had the discussion about the product, and the next best step is to book the demo. So you've had the discovery call and the prospect is interested. So the next best step is to book the demo. What you're going to do is say, based on everything you've shared with me, or based on everything we've talked about, the next best step is for us to book a time for your demo. So the decision is voiced really clearly. And if that prospect is exactly where you think they are in wanting to learn more, they will book the demo. Again, if someone had come up to me and said, based on how you're describing your light fixture, these are the best light bulbs for you to take home. I would have bought them. Now, maybe at the end of the demo, there needs to be a conversation about setting up a 1-month trial. Same language, right? Based on everything we've discussed and the questions you've asked, the next best step is to get you started on your 1-month trial. So that next best step, it can happen actually several times in a conversation, right? So the next best step is for us to talk about the house that you're purchasing if you're a mortgage broker. It helps that prospect move through the conversation with you and also helps them make decisions. The other interesting thing about the next best step is that it helps reveal objections. And, people don't like objections, but we've got to like them, because when we hear them, when we're able to expose them, we can keep the conversation going. And that's exactly what we want to do, because we really want to help this prospect that has expressed interest in what we do. So here's 2 examples. Objections for me are often questions in disguise. So let's say the objection is, oh, I'm too busy. Like, the question behind that is, how can I possibly book another meeting? I just can't, right? So I'm too busy. What we want to do with this objection, and most objections really, is let the prospect know that we're familiar with this objection, that we hear it all the time from our clients, right? So you want to say, I do understand. All of my clients have shared this with me. I do have extended hours and am available on weekends. What time of day is usually the most flexible for you? So you're letting them know that your clients had that concern when they were prospects. That's important. And then you're letting them know about your flexibility. Maybe you're not available on weekends, but if you are, then you can say that. And then you're asking the open-ended question, what time of day is usually the most flexible for you? At that moment, most prospects will open their calendar. Another one might be that I encounter a lot with teams is, I'll have to check with my spouse or partner. And what the question is behind that is, how can I book this meeting without speaking to my spouse or partner first? Well, what we know about most partners is they have a rough idea of what each other's schedule is like. Maybe if somebody works shifts, that's not the case. But most of the time, partners are pretty clued in to what each other's schedules are. So we can say, well, we have 2 options. We could have the first meeting without your spouse so I can share some ideas with you, or we can set up a tentative time. What time of day usually works with your spouse's schedule? So you're reminding this person that, they have information on their spouse's schedule, and a tentative date could be possible. Okay, I hope those are helpful for you, for your team members, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with questions, with comments, to have a conversation. Share this newsletter, this video with other people who can benefit. You can book a conversation with me. The link is there. My email is there. My website is there. My LinkedIn is there. Would love to connect with you. Hope all is well in your world. Thanks for listening.